I guess we'll go ahead and start taking calls. We've got the Captain on line 1. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good today. I've been thinking that it seems to me that people who are kind of real doctrinaire have trouble dealing with ambivalence and uncertainty.
Okay.
And that seems to me that seems to be something that I see a lot with religious folks and also with atheists and people who are real big on those kind of topics, whichever side of the thing they're on.
Can you give a little more detail about what exactly you mean? Because I mean, I realize that we're all uncomfortable with the idea of uncertainty, but realizing that
Sure.
we can't really be certain about anything, and that the universe we deal in kind of deals in probabilities. I think there's quite a few people who come to grips with this rather easily. At least I think I have.
So you were on the way to Holy Orders or the ministry or something? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, were you as, because you're such a good debater and everything now, were you like a really good apologist or what?
Nah, I was probably okay.
Well, it just seems that I see a lot of people who, when you find that they're, it's as if they need to go from one, you're kind of like jumping from one meaning structure or one belief system to another. It seems like that you're kind of missing out on. I think one of my biggest criticisms of religion is just the excess of need for clarification on things that are kind of, by their very nature, ambiguous. And atheism seems to be very similar too.
How?
Kind of like in the sense that there's people who are atheists, or the ones that I encounter, especially the ones that are really serious about it, like you guys. There's a need to settle the question, and to the extent that not only is it settled, but that you're almost in a constant mode of trying to settle it for everybody else.
I don't see that at all.
You know what you've been doing for the last few years? You watch your show?
Yeah, I know. Do you? I know exactly what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
Oh, sure. I absolutely watch your show.
I mean, because it says here that your claim is that atheists are dogmatic.
Not necessarily dogmatic, but have a need to have things clearly delineated. Have a problem with dealing with, I would say, are below average in their ability to deal with ambiguity.
Well, I would fully accept that until you actually get specific and make a claim that I can address, that it's rather frustrating to deal with your ambiguity. I mean, what's your point?
My point, weren't you also in the military?
Yes.
That seems to be kind of like, it seems like almost everything you've been involved in is something where...
John, were you in the military?
I was never in the military.
There you go.
And
you want to talk to John?
Well, that's not my experience.
No, I was talking to you. Aren't you the primary host?
We're both here. You're talking about atheists in general, and you wanted to bring up you brought up my military experience as if it was particularly relevant.
I do think it's relevant.
Okay, and in what way?
I think that you're somebody who probably needs things so clearly set out that you kind of need them spoon-fed to you.
Okay.
I mean, you weren't. I mean, so you weren't exactly precocious as a skeptic, isn't that right?
I'm sorry?
As a skeptic, you were not exactly precocious, considering how late you were buying into all the superstition and stuff.
With the exception of my religion, I had already pretty much used skepticism to address every other supernatural claim.
So you'd already addressed all the supernatural claims, except for that there was a man in the sky who created our planet, and that Moses divided those. Well, so you hadn't really dealt with any. Were you saying you didn't believe in flying saucers, or what?
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, I had skeptically evaluated all sorts of things. It's just that the religious beliefs that I had were the last thing that I really took a look at. Because there are protective mechanisms built into religion. There is this encouragement to not question and a tradition of making it seem absurd that you should question it because everybody around you believes this and it's just so obvious and you seem to get answers and there's confirmation bias and 1,000 other things that religions depend on. But when I did decide to examine my religious beliefs appropriately, they went away.
So when did you decide to examine the thing which was the kind of the primary thing going on in your life? When did you decide to look at it?
When I decided to get serious about it?
Okay, well, so I thought you were considering the ministry, right?
Yes.
Well, you know, I was raised religious too. On both sides of my family, people were pretty serious about religion, and you know, I was never really against it. And, you know, I didn't feel like I was sacrilegious or anything, but I mean, we never, me and my friends and my cousins and brothers, we never really took it that seriously as far as, like, I mean, Adam and Eve and that kind of thing.
Yep. Well, other people do.
So you really believe that stuff?
Yes.
Well, aren't you worried that whatever failings were hurting you back then you might somehow be suffering from the same problem?
No.
Well, I think you ought to consider that, because it seems like you just found yourself another kind of situation similar to what the one you had before was.
No, because I used to believe something and now I don't. And saying that not believing it is the same situation as believing it is patently absurd.
Oh, no, it's different in that way, but it's similar in the sense that the amount of time and energy that you've invested in
the amount of time and energy that I've invested in this is because I am convinced that a lot of other people are also wrong and I'd like to help them not be wrong. Or, if in fact they are right, I'd like them to be able to demonstrate that.
Isn't it less about that and more about your anger about having wasted so much of your time with this stuff?
No, I'm not angry at all.
You're not angry that you put all that time and energy into a bunch of BS?
No, because if I hadn't done that, I couldn't do what I do now.
Well, it seems like that you're missing out on the best thing about not being religious is that you don't have to put so much focus and intensity on unresolvable metaphysical questions.
Yeah, unfortunately, I actually give a damn about what kind of world I live in, and I care about people enough to help other people who may be believing things without good justification find their way free to enjoy life as well. I mean, you know pretty much nothing about me other than what you see on the show, so I don't know what it is that you think I'm missing out on, but I have about the best life I could imagine right now.
Well, I just don't think you're very laid back at all.
Okay. How well do you know me?
I don't know. I've watched hours and hours and hours of you talking.
Sure, you've seen the TV show.
Yes.
Do you know me in any other context?
No.
Okay. Have you got some point that you wanted to get to? Because I mean, while I am fairly laid back, I don't want to waste the entire show on your unsupported speculations about my life, because that's not really relevant to the show.
Oh, so people aren't getting a very good idea of what you're like from watching the show.
Well, they get a good idea of what I think about these issues with regard to religion and philosophy, skepticism, science, and things like that. But
well, don't they
this
also
is not
get an idea of kind of what your emotional tone is?
On these topics, in these scenarios?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, well, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay. So you have some opinion of me. Why should I give a damn?
Well, it's not just an opinion of you. It's an opinion of, I think, a lot of times what you find, I think that an unfortunate thing with people who get heavy into the atheism thing is that they're coming out of religion and they never get a chance to give the whole thing, just give it a rest.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Are you religious in any way?
Yes.
Okay. You don't seem to take it seriously, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, I was raised by really, on my dad's side, by really liberal Catholics who, you know, religion was a big thing, but it was kind of like, it all came down to kind of like liberal, helping the poor kind of stuff.
Well, okay, but you believe there's a God, right?
I think there probably is, sure.
Okay. And you don't think that's an important issue worth investigating?
No, I don't at all. It seems to have very little to do with anything.
Thanks for calling. All right. I guess I shouldn't have hung up until maybe you had something to add. But I mean, if somebody's going to call the show to tell us how they don't think that the conversations that we're having are particularly important, and they're a believer, why the hell did you waste our time?
Well, and it's really presumptuous too. His initial claim that that the atheists he've met are really dogmatic. Well, I'm not. I'm not coming out of religion either, so I'm not rebelling against some notion that I wasted my time for all these years. And so, I think that's really a caricature. Maybe the people he's run into are like that, but he's painting with a pretty wide brush.
Yeah, I find it funny. I mean, the reason I'm an atheist is because I actually took religion seriously. I thought it was important enough to investigate. After all, what bigger question could there be than the possibility of an afterlife and where you might spend it and how you go about it and all this stuff? Or if there is some God who's judging your actions that you take, wouldn't you want to know which one's the right one, which actions are the right actions? And the people who have these fuzzy, I just don't give a damn beliefs, I don't get it. But the thing is, of the two of us, I am talking about issues that I think are important, where I think there's a lot of people who are misled. I'm willing to have my mind changed based on good evidence. I care about the topics. I do this quite often. I spend a good chunk of my life working on this. And yet he is in the position where he doesn't think this is particularly important, and yet it's important enough for him to call to tell us how not important it is.
And watch hours of the show.
Yeah, he watched hours of the show to determine that I'm not at all laid back and that I'm missing out on good things in life and that I'm wasting my time talking about something that he doesn't think is important. And yet he's a believer and I'm not. Well, congratulations. I don't see what the purpose of the call was. But.
Well, in my experiences is that the atheists, at least the ones that I've met, are much more comfortable with the idea of I don't know than believers are. So again, he started with the premise that atheists want an answer, want a solid answer, and they're just as dogmatic. And I don't see that at all. I think atheists are much more willing to say, well, there's some things that we don't know. We're investigating all the time. We have the best explanation we have for how life formed on this planet, for example. But we're comfortable with saying, I don't know all the details yet, and it's believers who say, I do know, and it's God. So
yeah,
I don't see that at all.
To the extent that we are all a little disturbed by answers like I don't know and want to find the answers, the big difference between believers and non-believers is that believers think they found an answer and the non-believers don't agree.
Right.